Yes, in the shop again. So last week's video mentioned we're gonna be working on the Raptor. We got the parts all set out for it. We got a CP intercooler, CP charge pipe, CP intake, and some CPE downpipes. Don't look in the engine bay there. Downpipers. So there's obviously another vehicle in the background that wasn't in the previous videos. This is a vehicle that I picked up last year for a project, and it's been about 9 months, I believe, and it really has a long ways to go. It's not anywhere close to being finished, so we're gonna do the whole build and go over the plans next week. Actually start the build and go over the plans next week, but it's a 2016 Mustang EcoBoost. It's no longer an EcoBoost. I'm not gonna divulge any information at all about the engine until next week, but the name of this project is Triggered, and that might give you a little bit of an idea what's going on there. So we're gonna start on the Raptor first. We're gonna remove the intake here. We obviously mentioned we got CP, but we're gonna start up top, get this removed, and also disconnect the charge pipe going to the throttle body. That way, when we get underneath the car to do, or the truck, underneath to do the intercooler, we can do the charge pipe as well. That way we don't have to drop it back down to disconnect anything on top. So down pipes are gonna be last, just because they're a pain in the ass and might not get finished today. So I do need a vehicle to drive out of here because nothing runs. Got a hole in the block. Got a long way to go, and the Fiesta's sitting outside, and you know the deal with that. It's still got some work to be done to it. So we're gonna jump into it. We're gonna get the intake all laid out and go over everything that's included in the kit, and then start the install. Have everything from the intake kit laid out here. So we'll go over everything that's included. First, you have the install guide. You can use these in conjunction with this video here for the install, but their install guides are always really well put together. Always been impressed with their installation instructions with all their products. We have 2 intake tubes. We have airbox cover. Hardware for the install. I didn't want to take it out of the bag because it would shoot all over the place. And then we have the airbox itself. As you can see, it's a dual inlet. And because it's dual inlet, we're going to have 2 filters. So because this is a twin filter intake, with any intake I install that has 2 filters, I always recommend putting the filters in first. We're obviously gonna go over that, but it's always a note I wanna make. Getting the filters in after it's all inside the truck is always a pain in the ass. So I'll just give you some quick tips throughout the way, showing how to make everything a little bit easier. All right, so the first thing we're gonna do is pull this 13mm bolt off. Then we're gonna pull these 17mm, they're actually 7mm hose clamps off. That way we can get the upper lid off here. It's the easiest thing. Pop this guy on here. Next were those 7s. Most of the time this clamp down here always is facing the wrong way, so we'll try to get it in there. Just kind of feel for it. Yeah, it's not going to work. So we'll disconnect these quick disconnects for the evap to kind of get it out of the way. And how you do those is you pry these green clips out and then push back, and they'll just pop right off. So just tuck that back there. Then you should be able to have better access to that hose clamp. Might need an extension, which we will. I think the best combo here will be a shorty 7 and then my quarter drive extension. That's what we got. Kind of cram your way back there. Feel for it. Feels like we got it. Nice and loose. Set that down, and then we'll pop the airbox cover off. You can lift up in the front, pull towards the front of the vehicle. Then with that disconnected, you should be able to kind of wiggle this out. There's a coolant hose here that needs to be popped off. And then we'll pop it off the lower driver's side turbo inlet. And then you have a air intake clip here, just kind of push and pull back. So we'll be removing this and put it on the new tube here shortly, but for now, just kind of set this out of the way. Filter can remove too, 41,000 miles there. I think this was replaced at 20K, but still dirty. Then what we'll need to do here is get a plastic clip pry and pry this off from the evap purge solenoid harness for the plug here. So just be careful not to break these. I actually saw somebody on YouTube do an intake install and they just kind of ranked on these things. But tuck that back here, and then now all that's left is you have this turbo, airbox inlet here, and it's just held down by these two clips. So kind of sneak in there. Don't break them, don't gouge them up so it looks like shit. Oh, there it is. It's on the other side. So you can see there's a little indentation here that you can get in. Didn't notice it at first, but it's there. Just pop these out, and if they separate, no big deal. Just kind of loosely put them back together so you don't lose it. Get your tools out of the way. Now with this loose here, you can pull this whole airbox out. There's just some grommets. Actually, we should pull this out too. This one you can do by hand. And sorry for the audio quality, it's a little bit different when I'm on the GoPro, but in the future we'll have a, here we go. You can see it's a fat clip, but in the future we'll have a microphone for the GoPro as well. Things are just back ordered. So you have a grommet in the center, just pull up hard. So those are the two things that are holding it in. And they go in these holes here. Look at that, that one's kind of goofed up already. Either way, still usable. So that's it for the factory airbox. I mean, everything's out of the way. So what we'll do is we'll start preparing the CPE intake to go in. So now that we got the factory airbox out, you'll see in the factory turbo inlets, the swirlers in here. You can remove these if you want. There's really no benefit in you taking them out, and some people say that it gets louder if you pull them out, but I've had 4 F-150s now. I've taken them out on 2 and it didn't make any difference at all. So I would just leave them in. It's not hurting anything. In fact, I believe they help a little bit. So leave those in. So now that we got that out, we need to take a couple things off the stock airbox. So the first thing I would recommend doing is taking the factory intake air temperature sensor out. Can be sort of a bitch. She gets in there pretty tight. So usually what I do is I will grab a pair of pliers, and though it's plastic, be very careful. Just put very little pressure on it and then twist to the left. Didn't need much, but just a little effort goes a long way. So now, sometimes you can pull it out if you just wiggle. There she is. So set that aside. We'll put that in later. And the next thing we need to do from the factory airbox is remove this rubber grommet. Should be able to just grab it and pull out the side. You'll see a little opening here. So it also can be a pain. Sometimes it's easier to push the metal sleeve out of the center, just like this. You can see the metal sleeve sliding out. It's kind of a pain because it's so thin, but pull that out and then the rubber grommet will come out nice and easy. So we'll set that aside because that's part of the assembly going on next. And then we need to take the factory intake duct off. So this is 8mm. So we'll grab an 8, get rid of the 7 we had earlier. Just loosen it up. So this hardware is not going to be reused, but keep it in case you want to go back to stock. We are going to be reusing this bolt. Remember, this is the one from the fender over here. This will be part of the next assembly as well. So all you gotta do here is just kind of pull to separate. There she blows. So now, the airbox sits in the vehicle like this. So I'll give you a quick look. It's gonna sit in here like that. So that means this is gonna go here. So kind of just line this up. So we're gonna use, in the kit, there's a 1-inch socket cap bolt. So it's got an Allen on it. And then we need the spacer. We need the washer, which will go on the bolt first. We'll do that 2 hands in a second. And then we have a nut that goes in the back. So first thing is to line this up in here. Like so. And then that spacer goes between the CP metal airbox and the factory intake duct. So we'll take the bolt, put the washer on it, push it through, and then line up this spacer in the back. A difficult one hand, isn't it? Yeah, it sure is. Here we go. And then just push it through. And then on the inside, hopefully my fat hand will fit through there. You take the securing nut and just kind of get it started on the back and then line everything back up. As you can see, things got wonky. So we'll line that in there. Finger tight. Maybe. Yep, there we go. So finger tight. And then what we're going to do is we're going to kind of center that in there, and then we're going to crank down that nut. X key in. Don't crank on it. Just snug it up. Because once you get in there, you might have to, you know, position it a little bit differently. That way it sits flush up here. So now we got that. Next thing we need to do is assemble this bracket onto the airbox here. This is going to be for the fender mount. So this is the included bracket. This is the factory rubber grommet. Shove that back home. And because the bolt's going to be going this way, you want this to be on the head of the bolt. So how these go on, there's already inserts on the heat shield. And then we just have these 3/4 inch socket head bolts. So we'll just start these in here. So now also in this kit are these 2 machined grommet pieces. So this goes in the factory grommets here. Just pop them in. This one's going to be weird for me because the grommet's all jacked up. But hold it out of the way, pop that in there. That's it for that. Couple tools out of the way. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get the filter in here. So loosen the clamp up extremely loose, just so it's on there. Fish the filter back into the airbox, and then just kind of use this inlet here to line it up. You know, get it just started all the way around. You'll know when it's centered, and then reach inside, and there's a lip on the inside of the filter. You can just kind of pull back on the filter. Super easy. That way you're not forcing it from the inside. You don't got much leverage there. So now you got that on. You can see inside here. That's where I got the clamp positioned. Hopefully you can see it. So while that's there, just gonna reach inside and tighten it down. So for this outer one, I'm gonna loosen it up as well. Same orientation with the clamp down at the bottom. And this one's a little bit tighter of a fit, so I kind of just shoved it because you got this little bracket down here that's sticking in the way. Pro tip, put the bracket on after the filters. I'm gonna take this off. just realize if you look inside, you can see the bolts are kind of in the way of the filter. And once the filter's positioned, it won't be in the way anymore. And just loosen them up until they're flush. Here we go. Here we don't have to take them out. Now we can slide this filter over. All right, so I found a little boo-boo in CPE's instructions. So don't pop these into the truck yet. Put them on the air box first. So grab 2 of the remaining 3/4 inch cap screws. So what we'll do is on the bottom of the air box here, you can see 2 holes, and that's where these go. So you can grab an adjustable wrench, put it on here. Don't spin this once you have the adjustable wrench on. Tighten it from the inside. Because if you spin that wrench on the outside, you're going to scratch the hell out of the air box here. Just give it a little snug. And then be careful taking this off not to scratch anything. There we go. So next thing before you drop it in is to put the cover on. So this is the rear inspection cover. This is kind of just here for all the filters, or for both filters to be installed. So in your hardware kit in the box, you're gonna have these smaller screws here, and this is gonna go there. So I'm gonna toss these on, and I'm gonna drop the whole assembly inside the truck. All right, so we got the air box set down in here. I already bolted in the side here. Earlier in the video, I put this grommet in the bracket. You should put the bolt in at the same time because there's really not enough room in there. I was able to just pop it out, tuck it back in there, and shove it down. But definitely put the bolt in before you get to this point while you're installing that bracket. And then you'd use a 13mm wrench to wiggle it in. Then once you get to a point you get enough gap, you can throw a ratcheting wrench in there and tighten it down. So the grommets or the air box is centered on the grommets down there. I'm gonna grab the clips for the air box inlet and go ahead and pop those back in while we're here. I just like to spin them around so the notch to remove them is facing forward. Just so it's easier to get to next time. Now I got the couplers and everything on the tubes already. Just because they're a little tight, you don't want to sit here listening to me grunting installing these things. So go ahead and grab the 4-inch straight couplers that are in the kit. Throw a clamp across the shop or your garage for good measure. So on these couplers here, you can either install them with the logos facing up, or you can install them with the logos facing down so you don't see them at all. I'm gonna go with up. And we'll just pop these on here. All right, center those up. I like to put the clamps on these now, just so it's easier to line everything up. Then always remember to put the clamps in a position that's easy accessible, which at this point would be pretty difficult, seeing as you're installing them. But go ahead and slide those on. I like to keep the clamp head up in the middle there. Nice and center, and then just snug it down. Now we're gonna go with the rear tube. This is the one that's gonna go back here. So when you put this coupler on, just go ahead and kind of take a look. The tube transitions this way, and then I have the 45-degree facing, straight up like this. This seems to be the best way to line it all up. And then I tighten this clamp down already so this coupler doesn't spin. And then we got to pop in the intake temp sensor. So you'll see down inside there, there's 2 openings, or 2 wider portions that'll line up with the clips on the sensor itself. So we'll drop it down in there. It'll be a nice snug fit, just like stock. Once you get it past, then you just twist until it stops. Now we're going to put the clamps on here. Grab the one I dropped. Found the washer, by the way. It was underneath the Mustang like I thought. So put that on there. So go ahead and preload those on there, just so they're on. You don't have to worry about re-adding later. I already got this one preloaded here. So I start on this side, airbox side, get it lined up in there. Then you'll line up the stock turbo inlet, push it past, and pull back up. And you want to bring it up to these notches here, and then slide the clamp up. So while that's on there, just go ahead and rotate this up so you have a nice gap here. And I'm not tightening this down yet because I want to get the other tube in as well. And before we forget, go ahead and plug the air intake temperature sensor back in. And then we'll get the other intake tube. I got this one already cinched down as well. So on this one, we'll start at the bottom, and then we'll push this top in at the same time. Here comes some grunting. There we go. You just slide this down in there, center it all up. And then we can move the clamps up, tighten them down. I remember when we removed the factory intake, we disconnected this evap line here. So just find it, untuck it from where you had it, come on down, snap it back in place. Make sure it doesn't pull off. Perfect. So now we got everything on. Make sure everything's all tight and snug. So this was a pre-release intake. I actually got this before CP launched the product. So I had them send it to me before the acrylic lids were finished. So I do have it, but I just forgot it. It comes with the hardware. It's these guys here. So it's an acrylic piece, says CPE on it, and it just lines up in here and you install the 4 bolts. So next time I come up to the shop, I'll bring it with me. But that's it for the intake. It's pretty simple install. You know, the hardest part is really lining up these tubes here and getting these couplers on, because the couplers are super tight. You can go with a little bit of Napa Sil Glide, rub it on the inside of the coupler, and then line everything up there. But that'll do it. We're gonna lay out all the intercooler stuff and get into the intercooler install.
I like the chase, the sweet aftertaste, but I'm wasting away in your cage. You give me just another superficial stuff, but I'm hungry, don't know